radical, fundamental principles of freedom, rational self-interest, and individual rights. This is the Yaron Show.
All right, everybody, welcome to Yaron Show on this Tuesday, October 10th. I hope you're having as good of a week as possible, given what's going on in the world. Sorry, but I'm still in a state of shock. All right, today I'll continue our updates on what is going on in Israel. We'll talk quite a bit about the response all over the world, including here in the United States. We'll talk some more about Harvard University's response, this time from the administration. And then we'll see, if we have time, we'll talk about a few other things as well. Let's see. You know, the horror of what happened on Saturday and into Sunday continues. Stories. You know, yesterday we basically heard about the music festival and the rape and slaughter and torture and just barbaric, animalistic behavior of Hamas in this music festival, targeted at primarily young women, teenagers, but men, women, you know, teens, early 20s, young people having a good time, trying to have a good time and having it destroyed in a flash and in the most barbaric fashion. Well, today we're getting stories out of Israel that make this seem, you know, even more, you know, that make that seem nothing is in comparison. I mean, I don't know if you've heard the stories, but it turns out that in this one kibbutz, which was basically overwhelmed by the terrorists, they basically slaughtered everybody in the kibbutz. Well, what everybody constitutes, part of what everybody constitutes, is a nursery. I mean, this is so hard to talk about. A nursery with you know 40 babies in it, young children and babies. Some of these young children and babies were decapitated. They were all slaughtered. They were all killed. 40 babies turned out from their cribs and just killed. I can't imagine the people who discovered this afterwards. I just can't imagine the horror. I mean, I don't want to imagine it. I try to blank it out of my mind. But this is really the image that needs to be in the forefront of our minds as Israel pursues justice in the days to come. It should be the image that Israeli soldiers take in with them. This is what is done to their children. This is the kind of hatred, viciousness, barbarism, primitivism that Hamas manifested in what they did. Killing is always horrific. Killing anybody horrific. You know, killing children face to face for no, not as collateral damage. Just because they're Jewish, just because they're Israeli, for no other reason. 40 babies. It's just hard to comprehend. It's hard to hold. It's hard to stay composed with all this. So it really is unbelievably painful. It's unbelievably painful when it happens anywhere in the world. It's particularly painful when it happens to people that in a place and people who are friends of relatives, related to relatives, for people who are part of your extended family. Anyway, it places. It makes it so much more horrific. The libertarians, the others, the left, and their moral relativism, their moral equivocation, their moral equivalence between Hamas and Israel. Basically, libertarians are part of the tribe of barbarians out there. This is it. from my perspective. Anybody affiliated with that wing of the libertarian movement party, I've always thought of them, or not thought of them, pretty low. This is it from my perspective. They are beneath contempt. One should have nothing, zero, zilch to do with them other than to condemn them. They are now the allies of baby killers. If they can't see that as something deserving of condemnation, if they can't see that as something to horror, if any sentence where they condemn that includes a sentence where they condemn Israel for something, then they are immoral bastards that you should have nothing to do with them. If any of you belong still registered to the Libertarian Party, now is a great time to leave that party in disgust and let them know why you are leaving it. People like Dave Smith and his cohort in what's called, I shudder to think what von Mises would think of this, but they dare to call themselves the Mises Caucus. Ugh. I mean, imagine what Mises would think of that. Mises, somebody who had to flee Europe because of the Nazis. Mises, who was never an anarchist. Mises, who was a decent human being and understood what evil meant and understood the existence of evil. The fact that they call themselves the Mises Caucus is one of the most disgraceful things out there. Anyway, that is out there. I'll just mention that Harvard University, I told you yesterday that, 31 organizations, Harvard organizations, put out a statement blaming Israel for everything that happened to those babies. Israel is responsible, not the people who actually slaughtered them, beheaded them. It's Israel that's responsible for this, not the animals who did this. It is unbelievable that Harvard students signed on to this. I know that some people are asking for the list of literally all the members of these organizations to be distributed so that nobody ever hires them coming out of Harvard, so that they pay for this for a long, long time. We'll see if that happens, but that would be a good thing to happen. But then the administration of Harvard came out with a mealy-mouthed, non-committal, it's horrible what's happened, but kind of moral equivalence. This is the Harvard administration. Let me read you, I want to read you what Larry Summers wrote before Harvard published their statement. And Larry Summers, here is one of the good guys in this context, in terms of, Larry Summers used to be, years ago, the president of Harvard. He had to resign because, he said something politically incorrect. He writes, in nearly 50 years of Harvard affiliation, I've never been as disillusioned and alienated as I am today. The silence from Harvard's leadership so far, coupled with a vocal and widely reported student groups' statement blaming Israel solely, has allowed Harvard to appear at best neutral towards active terror against the Jewish state of Israel. Unlike President Bakau's strong statement, strong statement in support of Ukraine after Putin's invasion, and the decision to fly the Ukrainian flag over Harvard Yard, or Dean Gay's powerful statement on police violence after Rodney King, right? We have as yet, 48 hours later, no official Harvard statement at this time of moral testing. Instead, Harvard is being defined by the morally unconscionable statement, apparently coming from 24 student groups, blaming all the violence on Israel. I am sickened. I cannot fathom the administration's failure to disassociate the university and condemn this statement. I very much hope appropriate statements from the university and college condemning those who launched terrorist attacks and standing in solidarity with its victim will soon be forthcoming. To be clear, nothing is wrong with criticizing Israeli policy, past, present, or future. I've been sharply critical of Prime Minister Netanyahu, but that is very different from a lack of clarity regarding terrorism. Now, Summers didn't even need to say that, but anyway, then Larry Summers, after the Harvard statement came out, where they basically said, He says, the delayed Harvard leadership statement fails to meet the needs of the moment. Why can't we find anything approaching the moral clarity of Harvard's statement after George Floyd's death, or Russia's invasion of Ukraine, when terrorists kill, rape, and take hostage hundreds of Israelis attending a music festival? Why can't we give reassurance that the university stands squarely against Hamas terror to frighten students when 35 groups of their fellow students appear to be blaming all the violence on Israel? So good for Larry Summers for standing up against the Harvard administration. I mean, it is sickening that the top university in the United States, by many measures, the #1 school in the US, cannot bring itself to condemning, unequivocally condemning, the evil of what Hamas has done. I mean, this is, of course, the culmination of now decades of moral relativism, decades of this, worship of victimhood, and of course the Palestinians are still perceived as the victims. This is after decades of groveling to the left at Harvard and internationally. This is the manifestation of all of that, and it's good that there are voices like Larry Summers. It would be even better if people like Larry Summers really thought through how we got to this place, really thought through what he and others at Harvard have done to the institution, to academia more broadly, to the way people think about issues, to the way people think about morality, to bring us to this state. How did we get to a position where 33 student organizations at Harvard can make such a statement? How did we get to a position where Harvard University's administration cannot condemn unequivocally an act of brutal terrorism like we just saw? How did we get to the point where people are so morally coward and so morally ambiguous that this is the state of the world? There is a lot of reckoning that's going to happen. I often have told businessmen, if they want to do anything to save America, stop giving money to your alma mater. If any of you give money to Harvard University, if any of you, the alma mater of Harvard University, I'm asking you, in the name of justice, in the name of all of our sanity, in the name of the future of this country, stop giving them money, and ideally let them know why. Because they've been taken over by a leftist, nutty segment of intellectuals who cannot even stand up in the face of the most brutal, obvious, perceptually obvious evil out there in the world. So stand up against this. Don't send your kids to Harvard. Question whether you should be hiring people from Harvard, particularly if they were members in one of these organizations. Get that list, print it out, put it up. If you're hiring people from Harvard, put up there and find out on their LinkedIn profile if any of the people you are about to hire, signed off on this statement. There has to be moral consequences to these stands. That's why I say leave the Libertarian Party, condemn your libertarian so-called friends, go out there on Twitter and call them on this. There's too much silence by the good guys. Don't let them get away with it. You should be morally outraged by what is going out there. And I know it's far away, it's in Israel, it doesn't affect your day-to-day life. I know it's hard to keep it up, but this is one of those cases. There are not that many where something happening outside the United States deserves your attention, deserves your moral outrage, and deserves your activism. Activism. This is a time to get active. This is a time to make your views heard. This is a time to stand up against the evil of people who we often associate with and let them know how bad they are, how little you regard them. You don't have to say much. You don't have to argue. Just call them on the BS. Just call them on the evil. Just let them know that it's not just me and a half dozen other people standing up against them, but there are hundreds, maybe thousands of you out there that are disgusted by what they stand for. Call them on it. Anyway, my call to action, I don't often call you to action, but my call to action, get on the side of freedom and go out there. I've mentioned a few other good people on Twitter who've done. Steven Pink has made some great comments. David Deutsch has been excellent on this, really excellent. I mean, again, we have certain disagreements in epistemology and other areas, but on his moral clarity has been excellent, and his condemnation of those who make moral equivalence has been excellent. I mean, I salute all those out there who are standing on the side of civilization and standing up against barbarism and murder and everything else associated with that. All right. In terms of what's going on ground, Israel continues to bomb Hamas constantly. It's been bombing. There was a lull during the night, but then most of the day today it's been bombing Hamas in the Gaza. It doesn't seem to have had much effect, and this is, you can only do so much from the air unless you're literally willing to carpet bomb the whole place, and Israel will not do that. Hamas has been sending rockets into Israel in still large numbers. You'd expect Israel to have already destroyed Hamas's capability of doing this, but these missile launches are so small. They have so many of these missiles. Obviously, Israel still has a huge intelligence gap in terms of where they're keeping all these missiles. But also remember, they keep the missiles in heavily populated residential areas, so that Israel hesitates to bomb. So they'd rather not bomb a Gaza residential area. What they'd rather let these bastards launch missiles into Israeli residential areas. If there's ever a sign of altruism and self-sacrifice, it is this. I mean, we care more about the civilians in Gaza than we care about the civilians in Israel. Again, Israel should be ruthlessly bombing any target, no matter where it is. So, for example, Hamas was mocking Israel today. It literally sent out an announcement saying, we encourage the citizens of, Ashkelon, the city closest to the Gaza Strip on the Israeli coast, to evacuate, because at 5 o'clock we're going to launch an attack on Ashkelon, mimicking the Israelis telling people in the Gaza Strip to evacuate because they're going to bomb. And indeed, at 5 o'clock, they launched this huge barrage of missiles into Ashkelon. I mean, that is mocking the Israelis. And the fact that Israel lets that happen, the fact that Hamas has, still 3 days into this, has the capabilities of doing that, is truly driving me crazy. It's driving me nuts. I know the capabilities of Israeli intelligence when they are focused, and believe me, over the last 3 days they are focused. I know the capability of the Israeli armed forces when they are dedicated to pursuing a mission. I don't understand the delay, and I don't understand the hesitancy. I know they are very concerned about the world and how the world views them, and they're very concerned about, bombing somewhere and some Palestinian children getting killed and then the moral equivalency all over again. But God, they need to stop that. And they need to make it clear the difference. I mean, Netanyahu, whoever in Israel, needs to get up, stand up, and declare that yes, civilians, including innocent civilians, i.e. children, are going to die in Gaza, and that their blood is on the hands of Hamas. Every drop of blood is on the hands of Hamas. Israel did not start this. Israel did not initiate it. Not if you go back 75 years, not if you go back 25 years, and not if you go back 3 days. And somebody needs to frigging say this on the Israeli side. This is the Arabs, this is the Palestinians, this is on Hamas. The blood is there, it is on them, and the blood will be shed, and we don't apologize for it and get used to it, because the next few days are going to be frigging bloody. And no, they won't say it. They will not say it. But I say it for them. And I say it, for all those out there who continue with the disgusting moral equivalence. It is unbelievably frustrating to me that they have not, they're not, maybe tomorrow the ground offensive will start. Who knows when the ground offensive will start. And I know it's going to be brutal. I know it's going to be hard. I know a lot of Israelis are going to die in this. But what is the option? What is the choice? And then add to that there still has been nothing on the northern front. Hezbollah they've given them 3 days to prepare, 3 days to build up, to call up their own reserves, to build up their arsenals, to move weapons in from Syria. Who knows what they're doing? Again, Israeli intelligence must be on top of this. The fact that Israel is not bombing Syria and Iranian bases in Syria, the fact that Israel is not bombing the routes between Syria and Lebanon, which are going to continue to supply rockets to the Hezbollah. The fact that Israel is not, maybe there's special forces deployed in southern Lebanon. I certainly hope so. I expect so. But the fact that Israel has not started the systematic destruction of Hezbollah's infrastructure in the south. Again, maybe that they need the time to build up the forces, to bring the tanks to the north, to bring the soldiers up to speed, to gather the intelligence. Maybe that is what they intend to do. But instead of waiting for Hezbollah to launch a second front in the north, Israel should launch a second front in the north. Again, they should announce now, give the southern Lebanese 24 hours to evacuate, and then rain hell on whoever is left in southern Lebanon. But of course, they're not even raining hell on Gaza. So it's hopeless. It's hopeless. And in that sense, it is unbelievable. I've said this in the past, I think, but people ask me, somebody asked me a long time ago, Yaron, what's the most frustrating thing about what you do? And this is going to sound arrogant, and it is, but the most frustrating thing about what I do in life is that I know what needs to be done. I know what justice demands, which is, by the way, Ilan Jono's book, name a book, but I also know what'll solve the problems, what'll bring peace to the world, what'll actually lead to human flourishing and prosperity. I know what needs to be done, and nobody is listening. Nobody's listening, and it's super frustrating to watch people do the exact opposite while the world burns. U.S. has brought its most powerful aircraft carrier into the Eastern Mediterranean. This is the aircraft carrier Ford, which is the new generation, the only new generation aircraft carrier. It's the size of 3 football fields, 2 nuclear power plants drive it. It is, an unbelievable fortress with unbelievable firepower. My assumption is that is brought into the Eastern Mediterranean not for America to take on Hezbollah or Hamas, but it is being brought into the Eastern Mediterranean. Eastern Mediterranean means closer to the Israeli shore. Basically, as a warning to the Russians not to intervene, not to enter, and as a warning to Iran not to participate. Now, I know right now, I guess I'm competing with President Biden, who's finally decided to make some comments to American people about what is going on in Israel. It sounds like he will express unequivocal American support to the Israelis and call the horror of what the Palestinians have done for what it is. It's playing in the background, but the reality is that I can't really. Yeah, so he's going through the horrors of what happened. The fundamental question is going to be, is this going to change anything about long-term U.S. policy regarding the Middle East? Is this a real sea change? Are we going to go after Iran properly? Are we going to make sure that something like this can never happen again? Are we going to initiate the process, which should have started 9/11, should have started even before that? of dismantling Islamist terrorist organizations all over the Middle East, including the Islamist regime in Iran. Right? He's not holding Bibi back behind the scenes. Bibi is holding Bibi back behind the scenes. God, you guys are so clueless about how this works and about what is going on and about Bibi. You remain delusional about Bibi Netanyahu and his pretend toughness. Nothing has held back Bibi except Bibi. And that is true for 15 years since he came to be prime minister. Let's see. Yeah, all right. So Biden will talk about all this. We'll see if he sneaks in something about pro-Palestinian into the speech as well. We'll see about that. Which reminds me, European Union, which initially on Saturday or Sunday announced that they were stopping all financial support to the Palestinians, yesterday renewed their financial support to the Palestinians. So again, blood on the hands of the European Union, blood on the hands of the Biden administration that's been supporting the Palestinians, blood on the hands of anybody who's provided the Palestinians with financial support as they reject peace, reject any kind of settlement, reject Israel as a political entity, as a viable political entity. It is blood on them, blood on them. All right, let's see. Oops, sorry. So now he's talking about duty to respond to the vicious attacks. We'll see what he says. Where's the but, if there's going to be a but? All right, let's see. Harvard University, I was going to, yeah, just rule of law. There's no rule of law when dealing with terrorists. All right, quickly, I want to mention that the Yaron Book Show is sponsored by the Ayn Rand Institute. It's as part of that sponsorship, we have set up a website, aynrand.org/start here, where you can get resources from the Ayn Rand Institute on applying Ayn Rand's ideas to pretty much anything, but particular to this development. If you go there, you will find on that page ARI's Ankar Gata and Ilan Jono responding to Hamas's war on Israel. Gata and Jono discussed how to apply Ayn Rand's ideas to this situation in a live podcast on Saturday. They'll do so again on Wednesday, that is tomorrow, on the New Ideal podcast on ARI's YouTube channel at 9 a.m. Pacific time, 12 p.m. Eastern time. So I encourage you to listen. They will have commentary post Biden commentary. You can get all that resources and a bunch of other stuff on aynrand.org. Start here, which is basically a website, a page that was created for Yaron Book Show followers to be able to interact with what the Ayn Rand Institute is producing and creating. So I hope you have the time to go there and experience some of the content. I don't know, it's hard for me to take on topics that are not related directly to what is going on, but let me do one quickly. Let me do one quickly and then I'll go to your questions. A study just came out from Penn Wharton University where it has a model of the U.S. budget. They've got a sophisticated model of the U.S. budget where they're predicting U.S. federal debt and how long before what they call it becomes unsustainable. That is, before the U.S. government either has to default on its debt or has to massively inflate, which it would have to do either one of them. Today, public debt outstanding is at $33.2 trillion, but it includes $6.8 trillion of that the federal government owns itself. This is trust fund money, Social Security, and so on, and all kinds of other accounting issues. So They hold the actual debt held by the public is 26.3 trillion. So they're using that estimate. They estimate that the U.S. debt cannot exceed about 200% of GDP, even with relatively still low interest rates, because you know that will ultimately lead to either again default or hyperinflation. Under the current policy, the United States has about 20 years for corrective action, after which no amount of future tax increase or spending cuts could avoid the government defaulting on its debt, whether explicitly or implicitly. Implicitly means monetizing the debt, creating significant inflation. Unlike technical defaults, where payments are merely delayed, this default would be much larger and would reverberate across the entire global economy. The time frame, according to them, is the best case scenario for the United States. This is under incredibly favorable market conditions. They're basically saying that the United States has 20 years to deal with the debt before it goes into in a sense, a death spiral where there's just no way for it to deal with it without defaulting. Just in case you were getting optimistic about the United States, I thought I'd share that study. It's something we on the Yaron Book Show are going to be following over the next few months, years. The extent to which our political class, left or right, is even willing to consider dealing with this. They have showed zero interest so far in dealing with it. I mean, literally zero, particularly when they actually have power. All right, we will take. I'll take some questions now. Feel free to jump in with more questions or with support with a sticker, or however you want to show support for the Yaron Book Show. Those of you who'd like to become monthly supporters and contribute to what I do on a regular basis, Patreon is a great place to do that. YaronBookShow.com/support, which is PayPal, is another fantastic way to do it. So please consider becoming a monthly supporter of the Yaron Book Show, showing your support for what I do, for the positions I take, for the enemies I am making for myself. We've also seen a significant uptick over the last couple of days in subscribers that, you know, really makes me feel good. It makes me feel like the things that I'm saying, as harsh and as controversial as they are actually attracting people to the show, actually seeing positive response from people out there. So subscriptions are up, which is a good thing. I'm sure I'm losing some libertarians, but many more people are adding as some of these libertarian creeps leave as subscribers, and good riddance, leave as subscribers to the show. Let me just point out, if you like the show, like past shows, like shows that you're listening to, even if it's not live, please like the show as you go forward. And that raises the show in the algorithms. It's helped us get to a wider audience. I think particularly this message about Israel, about America's role, about what Israel should be doing, needs to get a wide audience. The kind of moral clarity that I think I'm almost the only one out there that is expressing. It needs to get a large audience. So please consider sharing and consider liking the shows as we move forward. Oh, I did want to mention this, and God, it's hard to mention. I don't know if you've seen, but we talked about yesterday and the day before all the demonstrations in cities around the world, and in New York City, that are pro-Palestinian. I mean, dramatic, big demonstrations, hundreds of people pro-Palestinian. Well, there was one in Sydney, Australia. For those of you from Australia, there was one in Sydney, Australia yesterday. And do you know what they were chanting? I mean, the chant of the audience, hundreds of people in Sydney, Australia. We're not talking about Pakistan. We're not talking about Saudi Arabia. We're not talking about Iran. In Sydney, Australia, the chant was, "Gas the Jews. Gas the Jews." Forget about, them pretending not to be anti-Semites. Forget about this being some caring about the Palestinians or something like this. This is now naked. This is naked anti-Semitism. Gas the Jews was the slogan. To hell with babies being decapitated and killed and slaughtered. People in Australia, primarily Arabs in Australia, but who knows who else was in the crowd there. I'm curious if those of you who are in Sydney, in Australia, know more about this, chanting, gas the Jews. This is why Israel is a unique state. This is why Israel needs to exist. Not because, in an ideal world, Israel should not exist. Not as a Jewish state, not as an ethno-religiocentric state. But in a world in which, even after the Holocaust, even after everybody who knows what happened, even after everything that's happened in the history, and even as the West has been, quote, civilized, in a Western country, people are going out there talking about gassing the Jews. And then you have leftists and libertarians who are just, there's some bad on that side and the bad on this side and so on. Yeah, the Jews better have somewhere to run to when things get really ugly, because don't rule out, as civilization descends, one thing, that the one group that is going to be blamed for everything, the one group that people are going to go out there trying to get other Jews, whether you count yourself as a Jew, whether you consider yourself as a Jew, whether you're completely secularized and completely assimilated or not, they're coming after you. They're coming after you. Israel needs to be there as an escape, as a place to escape to. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. All right. Bree, why is everyone in the government and you so afraid of Iran? This timidity has led to 30 years of free reign for the terrorists. In any mention of retaliation against Iran is treated like it will end the world. I don't know. I mean, this has been the case since 1979, when Jimmy Carter failed to act to free American hostages in Iran. This has been the case where even when Ayatollah Khomeini threatened American publishers and Americans for publishing Salman Rushdie's book, George Bush refrained from criticizing Iran and really going after them. This has been the case after 9/11, where they refused to blame Iran for everything. Yeah, it was part of the axis of evil, and then ignored. This is the case throughout since 9/11 of not being willing to take them on. Yes, Trump killed, one Iranian general. Whoopoo. Instead of going after the regime and crushing them. I don't know if Biden mentioned Iran or not in his statement today. I haven't heard the Israeli Prime Minister mention Iran yet. But it is time to take on the Iranians. It is time to end the Iranian regime. This will help Iranian women. It'll free them. It'll liberate them. It'll liberate the Iranian people. But it is time to destroy Iran's capacity to inflict pain on anybody. One way, one way to destroy the Iranian economy right now is to bomb into oblivion the oil fields of Iran. Income goes to zero. Bomb into oblivion every military facility in Iran. And, I would bomb into oblivion the city where all the Ayatollahs study, but and anything of the regime. But nobody's going to do that. Nobody's going to do that. Israel should do it, and the United States should have its back. Now it's now or never. I mean, when is Israel going to attack Iran's nuclear facilities, if not now? When America will probably let it get away with it. But no American regime has allowed Israel to do it before this. Now, again, I've said there's a small window of time when the world's sympathy is on the side of Israel. It's already tilted. Already most of the headlines about all the people killed in Gaza. So now is the time to inflict maximum damage, quickly, ruthlessly, on the Palestinians, on Hamas, and then on the Iranians. in a week, in a month. They won't have the capacity to do it because the world will not let them. The Biden administration will not let them. You know, anyway, so, yep. All right. Peter says, there seems to be no extent of rape, pillage, and murder that can shake leftists out of their vicious environmental determinism. They simply do not take ideas seriously, not even the most overt genocidal antisemitism. It's not that they don't, it's not even that they don't take ideas seriously. They don't take human life seriously. And that's the key. This standard, and this is a point I think Alex Epstein makes so vividly and so real. This standard is not human flourishing. This standard, and to take it one step even below that, this standard is not human life. They don't care about climate change because human beings are going to suffer. They care about climate change because worms are going to suffer. They care about climate change because Mother Nature's unhappy. They care about they don't care about human beings. That is the fundamental. And I put right up there with the leftists and the environmentalism. Now I put the libertarians of the Libertarian Party, the libertarians of the Dave Smith wing of the, and I'm not going to call them the Mises Caucus because they don't deserve that name, so I'm not going to use that term. But the Dave Smith and the Mises well, there we go. I use Mises again. Institutes, that wing, they are just as bad as the worst leftists, and they should all rot in hell. But yes, the left does not care about human life. They don't care about human life. They care about some, utopian agenda of egalitarianism, and they care about offending Mother Nature. Those are the only things that they care about. And to achieve that, egalitarian heaven, that egalitarian utopia, you have to kill 40 babies and you have to decapitate it. What did Lenin say? You have to break a few eggs in order to make an omelet. And if you don't get like shivers when these babies are mentioned, I don't know what's wrong with you. All right. Francisco says, Yaron, I hope you stay strong in these tough times. Remember, many people support you and a positive force in the world. Keep fighting for justice. I appreciate that, Francisco. Don't worry. I will stay strong. These shows are good for me. They're therapeutic. They allow me to vent. Also, seeing the support I'm getting on the shows, seeing the, just in terms of the money raised is good, but just your participation, the amount of views that the shows in Israel have gotten, they're really record-breaking in terms of live viewership. We're now getting over 200 people watching live every one of these shows. I mean, I am unbelievably appreciative of the fact that you guys care enough to listen, care enough to support, care enough to share it, care enough to go on Twitter and do something about it. Just that you, in a sense, with me in this battle. I wish it was thousands. I wish it was millions. But again, it's always been the case that our struggle is one mind at a time. We're going to grow slowly, but we are growing. I really, it does mean a lot to me that subscriptions are going up. It does mean a lot to me that issues like this bring people to this show and to this cause, the cause of liberty, of freedom, the cause of individualism, the cause of reason and rationality. And ultimately, and I know that the cause of peace. Peace cannot be attained from a position of weakness. Peace cannot be attained by the good appeasing evil. Peace cannot be attained by the good laying down their weapons. Peace can only be attained through victory. Peace can only be attained by the good, achieving the moral high ground, sustaining the moral high ground, and defending the moral high ground. There's no way to achieve peace if the barbarians are allowed to get away with it. All you get is barbarism. And that's what the anarchists want. That's what the anarchists want. They want anarchy, which is barbarism. They want death and destruction. Individuals defending themselves, like in the good old medieval times. Those are the good old times. So thank you, Francisco. Really appreciate it. Sylvanus, words fail to convey how angry and depressed I feel regarding the response to the situation. Keep hammering, Yaron. I will. I will keep hammering. Unfortunately, this is also all happening at a time where I'm traveling. It's happening at a time where I'm off to do talks in Europe. It makes it very difficult for me to do media. We're trying to get me media in places like Israel, but it's very difficult for me to get on media and to do media. We are thinking of doing a talk on the whole Israel situation in London on the 18th after I do my public speaking seminar. So if you are interested and would like to come, let Razi know. If you live in England, if you live in the UK and you would come to such a talk, if you would come and support, if we could get a large group in support of me giving a talk about the situation in Israel live in London, next week on the 18th of October, please drop Razi an email, a text, or whatever. Let him know, and I think we need to get him motivated and confident that people will show up, that the event is worth doing. I know Alexis is actually not going to be in London when I'm there next week. Alexis says, some typo here. How does one do not fall into a what's the point? How does one not fall into what's the point line of thinking when faced with such horrifying behaviors? I get the what's the point attitude. I mean, God, it's tempting. The point is this. The point is your sanity. Forget about the world. Forget about convincing anybody. Forget about them. Forget about anybody outside. Think of you, your family, your children, the people you love, the people you care about. The least you can do in a situation like this when facing this kind of evil is to speak up for them, for you and for them. The point is not convincing anybody. The point is your own moral outrage. The point is to express, the justice of your cause and to stand up for good and just and right. It's what your kids demand of you. It's what the people you love demand of you. I think it's you love your life, and when your life is threatened by the barbarism of the world, you gotta stand up and speak against the barbarism of the world. So forget about who you're talking to. Forget about what impact it has on them. That's not the point. The point is just to express yourself. The point is just, and to know that there is a community. This is a community here on the Iran Book Show. There's a community at the Ayn Rand Institute. There is a community out there of people who share your values, who are as outraged as you or speaking up as you. Don't let the bad guys get to you. I mean, they have to get to you because we're all feeling what we're feeling, but don't let them depress you to the point of forgetting how much you love your life and how much you love the people that you love and how much you care about those people that you love. That's what should drive you. That's what should motivate you. Thank you, Tom. I appreciate the support. Hiram, I'll never forget that story about the dummy who hitchhiked a ride from in the 1970s, and I'm truly sorry for numerous religious comments, Yaron, which you've made in abundantly clear you weren't part of. I don't understand any of that. What does that mean? I'll never forget that story about that dummy you hitchhiked a ride from in the 1970s, yes. And I'm truly sorry for the numerous religious comments, Yaron, which you've made in abundantly clear you want no part of. I'm not sure about the religious comments. I'm not sure what they relate to, but yes, I can't remember which particular hitchhiking story you're referring to, but I've got a few of those, horrific hitchhiking stories from the 1970s in the American South. They were not encouraging in terms of the state of America. All right, Cook says, thank you for the daily video updates on what's going on in Israel. I'd say, I'm happy to do it, or I have to do it. What choice do I have? Shay says, מה שיהיה או לא מה שהיה, what has happened is not necessarily what will happen. Let's hope. Yeah, hope is what we have. And Meerkat reminds me of that Simpsons episode where Mr. Burns tells Yale to F off. We need more of that. Furthermore, I'm of the opinion that Gaza must be destroyed. Yeah, but it ain't going to happen. Antonio, thank you for your clarity and speaking the truth. I appreciate that, Antonio. Frank, how does flattening Gaza square with property rights? Some innocent people might own businesses and land being decimated. Do you apply here? No, it doesn't apply here. Israel is not responsible for respecting or protecting the property rights of Palestinians. That's the responsibility of their own government, and that's the sense in which whatever happens to Palestinians is the responsibility of the Palestinian authorities. Hamas is the governing body of Gaza. It's not a terrorist organization unrelated to the people of Gaza. It is the governing authority. This is why you should care who your government is. They act on your behalf. They represent you, whether you like it or not, whether you voted for them or not. They are your representatives. And when Israel is out to defend itself, it doesn't have to do a questionnaire. Who voted for Hamas, who didn't? Okay, people who voted for Hamas, we're going to shoot you. All the people who didn't, okay, here, we'll give you a safe haven. That's ridiculous. This has nothing to do. People, first of all, in a dictatorship, who has property rights? What does property rights even mean? But in the context of war, property rights are null and void. You are the victim of your own government. If your government has launched an attack on an innocent third party, that innocent third party has no responsibility towards you. It has every responsibility to its own citizens to do whatever is necessary to protect them. And if bombing your land is required to protect them, so be it. And, the Palestinian population could fix this right now, today. There could be an uprising in the Gaza Strip and the complete elimination of Hamas from within, and they can immediately vie for peace with Israel. They can surrender. So the Palestinians could surrender to Israel now. They could kill Hamas, they could destroy them all, and they could surrender. The fact that there's not even a squeak of that, there's not even a hint of that, tells you all you need to know about what's going on and the moral responsibility they have. Dan Wilson says, Yaron, I despair at humanity when you see the pro-Hamas response. The pathetic left-wing BBC, the BBC is the worst right now, in UK refuses to call them terrorists. Militants, they call them. Thanks for your voice of reason. I appreciate that, Dan, and I understand the despair. Brian, gosh, the truly tragic thing is that Israel could end this whole thing so relatively easy once and for all. Yes, and they won't. And they won't. We know that. Philip says, I'm preparing a speech for my brother's wedding. What advice would you give the couple for their shared future? God. I need to focus on what they can control, to focus on their lives, to focus on creating beauty. And don't bring war and horror into a beautiful celebration like a wedding. Focus only on the positive. Focus on what they can create, the kind of world they can create for themselves, the kind of the beauty they can surround themselves with, the love that they bring into this relationship, the future that they can create for themselves. Don't bring politics, don't bring the state of the world into a speech in such a beautiful event as a wedding. Apollo Zeus, pro-Palestinian protesters attacking Jewish businesses in London and other cities. God. And are they being condemned for it? No. Stav, what do you make of the conspiracy theory about CIA+Ukraine revolution that USA instigated this war, etc.? Just another stupid conspiracy theory because nobody wants to believe in evil, and everybody wants to, in the end, blame the United States. Everything bad in the world happens because of the United States and Israel. The strong, the able, the free, the competent are always blamed for anything bad that happens in the world. This is altruism and craziness and mysticism and the complete insanity and the conspiracy theory kind of insanity that's going on in the world. I don't know how to even deal with it. But if you know anything about the Middle East, you don't need a conspiracy theory to explain what's happening. It's pretty obvious. Cook says, more like Noam Chomsky, wing of libertarians. Yeah, they love Noam Chomsky, by the way. They think Noam Chomsky is fantastic. He's an anarchist. He hates the American government. He blames everything bad in the world on libertarianism. It's definitely the Chomsky wing of the libertarians. I like that. Maybe that's what we should call them. Let's see. Stav says, we have heard this increasingly from Tim Pool, Patrick Ben-David, and other right-leaning people apparently used provoke Putin. I've talked about the Ukraine war. I've talked about the nonsense about the U.S. provoking Putin. I mean, it's complete BS. I've done whole shows about it. You can find it in my YouTube stream. Now's not the time to get into that, but yes, Tim Pool, Patrick Ben-David, the right has been completely captured by this notion that everything bad is ultimately, the fault of the good, of the United States, which is the good in this context. Can you explain, Rue Downs, can you explain how altruism leads to victimhood and condemns success? Yeah, I mean, altruism is the idea that your moral responsibility is to others, and particularly to others who are suffering. That is altruism. I mean, the meek shall inherit the earth. The fact that the poor are poor makes them virtuous. This is Mother Teresa's view. It is poverty, it is suffering, human suffering, that makes somebody virtuous. And your responsibility in life, your moral responsibility in life, is to devote it to helping them, to sacrifice for them, to sacrifice towards the victim, the suffering. That is what altruism is. That's what it means, to the extent that you help other people because you like it, because you like them, because you like it. It's not considered moral. It's not considered altruistic enough. Altruism is the morality that venerates suffering, venerates weakness, venerates the victim. That's what it is. And to be successful, it is obvious that one needs to think of oneself. To be successful, one needs to focus and put energy into pursuing some positive value for oneself. Well, that's egoistic and that's immoral, and therefore that must be condemned and trashed. Harold Gray, I learned moral clarity from you. Thank you. I learned the history of Gaza. I now get how confused everyone around me is in making moral equivalence arguments. I appreciate that. Thank you for listening and for taking what I say seriously. Proper says, it's hard to argue with people online because they have incorrect views on the history of Israel. Do you know any clips or sources to share explaining the history and the founding of Israel? Yes, I mean, there is an amazing book, What Justice Demands, that Ilan Jonah wrote on Israel, and it has that history and it has all that. If you look online, look at courses and lectures that Ilan Jonah has done on Israel. Nikos did a pretty good talk on Israel this last summer at Ocon. I have given courses and talks on Israel, on the history of the Middle East, on the history of Islamism. I mean, the amount of available content on YouTube is astounding. I would start with Ilan's book. I think that's the best. And then there's just an amazing a quantity of content, a lot of it that I and people affiliated with me have created over the years on the Israeli-Palestinian content. Me and Ilan, and there's on the whole Middle East that you can access. There's a history of the Middle East that I've done. There's a history of Islamism that I've done. And there's a rise and decline of the state of Israel, a talk that I did that explains Israel's weakness and its source in Kantian philosophy. So I encourage you to, all that information, by the way, is available free online on YouTube. Ilan's book costs you money, but you can get it on Kindle right now. Download it. So go do it. You can find a brief history of the Middle East. It's on YouTube. I mean, I think you'll learn a huge amount based on input I've gotten from people who've listened to it just on that, just by that. And there's a ton of others. And I will be doing a show, I don't know exactly when, in the next few days, on the Palestinian-Israeli conflict from an historical perspective to give you that historical sense. Tijikin writes, I will never understand ANCAPs. The utopia couldn't even solve a divorce without a full-blown war. They are just full-out evasion on rights. Absolutely. Well, they don't care about rights. Rights are not important to them. You saw that with my debate with Brian Kaplan. Rights are, he doesn't want to address it. They're a secondary issue. They're not what matters. Colt says, it frustrates me to see people on the new right make the moral equivalency between Israel and Palestine. Some people are absent morally. It's pathetic. Absolutely, absolutely. And I've warned you about the new right forever, the new right that some of you, Scott in particular, wants us to align with, are the epitome of scumbags. They are as bad, if not worse, than the left, and we should stay as far away from them as possible. Andrew says, is occupation the technically correct concept for what Israel have been doing in Gaza? Well, no, I mean, because it's not correct in any sense, because Israel has not occupied Gaza. Israel withdrew from Gaza. Israel left Gaza to the Palestinians. Israel created a Palestinian state in Gaza, led by Hamas. And this is the reward that it got for doing that. This is the reward you get from doing stuff like that. This is what we get. So, Scott's at it again. We should engage with the scumbags that see moral equivalence between what Israel does and the slaughtering of babies in their cribs. We should engage in conversation with them. Yeah, that's disgusting, Scott. Just disgusting. All right. Thank you, everybody. Again, thank you for the support, both moral and financial, and just by being here and participating on the chat and just by watching, sharing, liking. Please like the show before you leave. It's very easy to do, and it helps the algorithm a lot. So whether you're watching live or after the fact, like, comment, share. The more you interact with the video, the better it'll do with the algorithms. I don't know if I'll see you tomorrow. Tomorrow I've got meetings, maybe in the evening, maybe at night. I will see you tomorrow. I've got meetings all day, if not, and then Thursday there'll be no show for Thursday. There'll be no show Friday. So I'll definitely see you on Saturday, but maybe tomorrow evening I will do something, but certainly on Saturday. Thank you all. If there are, really big developments, I will try to get on, even if a few minutes. I might be doing a very short video later today. I might put up a very short video, basically just saying in like 2 minutes what I think should be done, expressing my moral outrage and what I think should be done, just a 2-minute video. If I do that, please use that video, share that video, put it up on every platform you can. I mean, as long as you agree with it. It'll be a short, pithy video with moral conviction about what Israel should be doing. And as soon as if I find the time this evening to do that, I will put it up, and I hope you guys will share it. I will always also go live with it. Thank you all. I will see you all in the next few days, one way or the other. Bye, everybody.